Okay, for president of Brooklyn? Your name again?
Nan Latch.
Okay. David Alexander. Louise Emanuel. Jessica Maids. Brian Lafferty. Victoria Camarada Putor.
Present.
Yesenia Cardona. Claudia Kojer.
Here.
Armenia Colon. Cynthia Cox.
Here.
Harold Miller, or Wanufi Tesson. Monica Major.
Present.
Francisco Feliz. Helen Foreman Hines.
Here.
Isaac Heschel.
Here.
Representatives for Jamani Williams.
Here.
There. Michelle Peregrine.
Here.
Susie Tannenbaum. Adam Bermudez.
Here.
Wayne King. Gregory Hambrick.
Here.
Gideon Dunkley.
Here.
Joseph Pierre.
I am here.
Lachey Young.
Here.
Basmati Patel.
Here.
Taj Berrien. Claudia Perez. Victor Reyes. Tamika Robinson.
Here.
Christian Rodriguez.
Present.
Is there anyone here for Councilmember Rose?
She's here, actually.
Oh, okay. Anderson Ortiz.
Here.
Robert Oliva. Ruben Gonzalez. Edwin Matthew. Derek Tate.
Here.
Okay, Ariel Sabransky.
Yes.
Gregory Brender, or there's somebody from United Neighborhood
Yeah,
House,
here.
right? Yeah, okay. And Janet Dugos.
Present.
Hi, Janet. Linda Walters. Present. $24, Greg. We're good. 24.
All right, good evening, everyone, and we, for the first meeting and 2 meetings, finally have quorum at the start of the meeting, so I want to thank everyone for that. Thank you for coming out to the meeting first. Happy to see everyone, happy that we're able to pull off a couple of layers of clothing. The weather's a little bit warmer, so certainly looking forward to that. And I globally just want to thank the CAB for all the work they do. We have a mixture of seasoned members here, people who have been members of the CAB for quite some time, and we also have a handful of new members who are committed to contributing to this Community Action Board. If you think about everything that has happened in the community, and for those of you that have heard it in the body of these meetings or may have been privy to it through your network with other community leaders, there have been a tremendous amount of accomplishments in terms of what we're doing to serve the needs of the community. And every time I hear about it, every time I see it, I personally reflect on the body of people that's in this room, because you are all representing your community, because you truly feel strongly about that. And I want to thank each and every one of you in this room for that. We've had numerous meetings from the deputy commissioner on the needs assessment and the course, and all of these tools we use to really dig in, not to just assume what the community needs, but to really dig in and find out what the community needs and to address it. And this body of people, individuals in this room, is responsible for that. So you should feel extremely proud to do that. And we've done a lot of heavy lifting as a board with the support of DYCD. And you should all feel extremely proud of that. This is a true oversight board. This is a true board where each and every one of you have a voice to speak and can have tremendous input. And for those of you that know, I'm in my second term as chair here, and this is not about me. This is about getting that input out and the voices out to really address the needs of the community. So you'll never hear me mute anything that needs to be said in this meeting, because no matter how insignificant it may seem to you, it's extremely important if it's going to address the needs of the community. So I want you, obviously, to continue to do that. What do we have to look forward to go forward as a board? There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of tremendous programs that DYCD has. Obviously on the horizon, once again, is the Summer Youth Employment Program, which has been huge, which has been extremely instrumental in getting our youth and young adults to work. For a large portion of them, that's their very first job, to kind of get work experience, to kind of form their career decisions. And again, I want all of you, help in terms of really finding partners, whether it's private or public sectors, to be able to employ these young adults. The Ladders for Leaders program, which is the more structured program to get individuals to work into, corporate offices of established companies and employers within the city. So that's something we can look forward to. We're gonna have a presentation more in depth about that, but I believe the number is somewhere around 75,000 kids were employed last summer. And I'm happy to report that Models and under my supervision, we're going to continue our commitment to that program. We continually employ anywhere from 250 to 275 youth, and every one of our retail locations and our distribution centers. I had a Ladders for Leader participant in our corporate office. We're going to continue with that partnership. Thank you. Not just employing through the summer. If you've heard me speak about my involvement in partnership with SYEP, it's a strategic process within our organization. We're not only employing kids for the summer, we're hiring 10 to 15% of that workforce for permanent positions within our organization. That's what it's about. It's great. I give free help, right, for 6 weeks. Then those who work out well, if we have positions, I've just trained for 6 weeks that next person that can really help our back to school business and maybe have decided that they want a career retail, not just in the stores, but in other areas of the organization. So that's something that we have to look forward to. 2020, we all know that the census is coming up. That's going to be extremely important, especially because of the global climate of certain racial classes within the United States. I'm saying the politically correct way, but everyone here knows exactly what I'm talking about. There are going to be individuals in the community very uncomfortable sharing information. It's going to be up to us to calm them and let them know it's for their benefit. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a smooth task, but we have to make sure that every person is represented. So we know the services that they need go forward. If they're not represented, then they're not going to get the services they need to make sure that they can have an economic way of life within New York City. So everyone should be thinking about that, go forward, and the individuals in this room are really going to be instrumental in doing that. So again, thank you for all your work. I'm here to support you. I want to hear your feedback. Thank DYCD for everything that they're doing, and I'm glad to be here. With that said, I'm very happy to have our Commissioner of DYCD, Bill Chong, here, and I'm going to pass the mic to him for a few words. Thank you.
Before I get my remarks, I'd like Councilwoman Rose, the Chair of the Youth Services Committee, to say a few words.
members and for all the CAB members. I want to thank you for all the good hard work that you're doing. I am the youth chair, youth services chair for the New York City Council. I am a council member from District 49, Staten Island, and I'm really excited to be the chair of this committee. So I've heard of the good work that you're doing, and I just wanted to come. I wanted to be a part of this meeting, and I want to listen and see what's going on and offer any help that I can in order to help further our collective goal of providing youth development and services, programming for young people in New York City. So I'm not the keynote speaker, so I know my place. I'm going to sit down. But again, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing because it's so important. And I just wanted to, just an aside, make sure that at some point we talk about the significance of the census coming up and how that's going to impact the funding on the federal level that will allow us to do the job that we need to do for young people in our communities. So again, I thank you so much for indulging me.
Thank you. So I want to echo everyone's thank yous because this program only works with youth involved. Because you're volunteers, no one's getting paid here. You're doing this because you really care about your communities, and you want to make sure that the federal dollars are well spent. I do want to start with thank yous to Sandra, Mike, and Greg, and the entire board, because for the second year in a row, we got a perfect score. Wow. 50 out of 50. And the thing that helped that was engagement of the board members, the role that, how often you meet, your attendance, all those kind of things matter to the, I think was it Mike or Sandra, is it federal or state evaluation? State, okay, state, who does it on behalf of the Fed. So 2 years in a row, so it's tough to top perfection, but we managed to continue it. I do want to say a few things. First of all, I want to talk about the Summer Youth Employment Program. The application is out, so if you don't know, please let young people you know, they can apply. I want to thank Councilwoman Rose and Public Advocate Jamani Williams and the entire City Council, because it was a uphill battle 3 years ago to get the city to agree to make it permanent funding. Because for many years, from 2001 to 2016, it was the budget dance. We had to, and it was different mayors and different council leaders, and we didn't know until 2 weeks before the start of summer how many jobs we had. Now, you can't really run a good jobs program if you don't know how many jobs you have. And it was unfair because a lot of groups had to say no because they didn't have the ability to ramp up and add more job sites. So this year, we launched a new model that, again, as a result of 2 years of planning. We worked with the City Council in the fall of 2016. There was a work group, a lot of recommendations on how to improve the program. And I think it's a much better model. We call it SYT 3.0 because we redesigned the program in 2005. So this is probably the most significant changes since the 2005 redesign. And the three big things we've changed, and I'll be glad to answer questions. One is we've always tried to make sure that young people who would benefit the most got the jobs. Historically, about 80% of the young people in the Summer Youth Employment Program came from families where they were eligible for food stamps. So we're definitely reaching a large number of working people. But we want to double down and reach even more young people who come from underserved communities. So we expanded the number of programs that serve homeless, court-involved, and foster care youth. We're working with the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice Services to make sure that young people who are involved in the Cure Violence programs are able to get jobs. We've increased the number of public housing developments where jobs will be set aside for young people who live in those developments. So we're trying to reach even a greater number of young people who would benefit the most. The second major change is that we're working with schools. That was something we heard loud and clear from the different members of the planning committee when we had the council work group, that we need to figure out how to involve schools. So we have, I believe, 45 schools which will have summer jobs programs. And a lot of them are career and technical education schools. So the idea is that when a young person goes to school for a particular skill during the school year, they can get a job in that field and learn whether this is something they want to pursue as a career. We're also working with CUNY, again, to connect young people with jobs that they're going to school for. And the third major change is that we realize that the experiences of young people who are 14 and 15 has to be very different than a young person who's 16, 17, and older. It's not the same. They're not ready for a real job. We want to make sure they have an opportunity to explore what's out there. Because you saw myself as an example. My first job was in the Summer Youth Employment Program in 1973. And at the time, I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer. And I realized I was not good at math. You can't do aeronautical engineering without being good at calculus. But that summer of 1973 was my first job, and I had a chance to work in a community-based organization in Chinatown. And that, in many ways, I look back too many years to remember, 49 years later, was probably a pivotal moment in my life because it exposed me to the role of nonprofits and how they were making an important role and contributions to community groups. So I don't think it's any accident I'm commissioner, because it opened my eyes to a world I didn't know about. So I want to thank you. And the last thing I want to talk about, and this is maybe a future presentation, we're doing a soft launch of what we call the universal application. One of the things that frustrated me when I became commissioner.
Here are the top results.
One of the things that frustrated me most as commissioner, as someone who started as a community organizer, is that how fragmented government is. The left hand and the right hand don't know what they're doing. DYCD is a microcosm of that, because we were the merger of 3 agencies. The Community Development Agency, which oversees the funding that you guys are involved in, the Department of Youth Services, which is a lot of the after-school and community centers, and the Department of Employment, which was the Summer Youth Employment Program and all the other workforce programs for young people. And so we would have millions and millions of dollars invested in the same neighborhoods. You know, Central Brooklyn, South Bronx, Northern Shore of Staten Island, you know, Rockaways, but the left hand and the right hand didn't know what they were doing because the group we funded didn't know what each was doing because there was no culture of collaboration within DYCD. And so one of the things we work towards is to make it easier for people to access services. Rather than to look at individual issues, look at the whole person, the whole family. So this universal application will allow, and it's going to be a 20-month rollout because we have 46 different programs that we fund, will allow a person to go online, start an application, and apply for multiple programs at the same time. And so if you're a parent and you have a child in 3rd grade, you can sign them up for an after-school program, but you have one who's in high school and you want to know how they apply for the Summer Youth Employment Program. When the application is fully operational, this will be over a 20-month period, because we're adding programs every few months, a person can do that. Because we know that the lives of young people and families that we serve are complicated. And rather than have them chase around and go to different places to apply, there'll be one place to apply. So right now we're doing a soft launch. We're doing presentations to other city agencies, because it's my goal to get other city agencies to use this. So if you're a frontline worker at an HRA benefits office and someone comes to you for help with childcare vouchers or food stamps, but they also need help signing up for an after-school program, the caseworker at HRA can do that. Or if you're a caseworker in a family shelter at Department of Homeless Services, and this is the stunning part, when I met with the first Commissioner of Homeless Services, the average stay for a family in a family shelter is over 500 days. That is stunning. So that shelter, whatever neighborhood it's in, is their community. And they need to be connected as much as possible to those services. So it's my goal to get other city agencies to use this as a tool to connect the people they serve with the services we fund. So that'll be something that we can certainly schedule for the June meeting, so you can see a live demonstration of this universal application. We're calling it Discover DYCD. We have an app called Discover DYCD, so this is Discover DYCD 2.0.
Yeah.
So thank you again.
Thank you, Commissioner. A lot of good information. I know Commissioner's busy. He doesn't get to the meetings often, and I know I want to move the meeting along. But any questions at all while the Commissioner is here on anything that he's stated here? Anything you would like to address? All right, you did a good job. Okay. All right, so let's move along with our agenda. So we do have quorum, and again, thank you for that. So we need to accept the minutes of our September meeting. So to put this in perspective, the two previous meetings, we did not have quorum, so we can't vote to accept the minutes of the meeting. We can review it and make sure everyone understands it, but we cannot vote on those two specific meetings. But the September 6 meetings, which was sent to you, it should be in your packet now. And I know it seems like it was a while ago, because it was last year. But we do, as a body, need to accept those minutes for the record. So if no one has any questions at all regarding that, I would entertain a motion now to accept the minutes for the September meeting. To be properly motioned by
Second.
Isaac. Okay, just say your name, please, for the start.
Joseph Pierre.
Okay, and seconded by Joseph Pierre. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstaining? We have one abstention? Just say your name. Okay, so we have one abstain. Anyone else abstaining? Then thank you for that. Okay, thank you, so moved. All right, so we're gonna move through. We need to recognize new board members. And I do have a few letters here. I promise I'll get through them quickly. And bear with me, some of it may be repetitive. I've read a couple of these letters at the last meeting. And again, we could not vote to accept these members, but since we have quorum today, I really want to just go through the letters so for a matter of record, we can vote and accept each member. And I know Anita's going to help me to make sure I don't miss anyone. Got it. Okay. From the office of City Council Debbie Rose, dear sir, madam, as you know, I've appointed as my representative for the DYCD board, Ms. Asma Elamarazi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I remember speaking that name last time. To attend as my representative. Please let me know if you have any questions regarding the above. Signed, Councilmember Debbie Rose, 49th District. All right, next up is from the office of Councilmember Andy King. Please designate Adam Bermudez, DYCD NAB CAB representative, and Shauna Milius as my alternate representative. In the spirit of unity, the Honorable Andy King, council member for the 12th District of the Bronx. All right. Next up comes from the office of Comptroller Scott Stringer. I, Scott Stringer, Comptroller of the City of New York, pursuant to the authority vested in me by the New York City Charter, do hereby designate Anderson Ortiz, or in his absence, James Johnson, whose specimen signature appears below as my representative on the Community Action Board. This appointment supersedes and replaces all prior appointments related to the above function and shall be effective immediately and remain in effect until revoked. Office of Comptroller Scott Stringer. All right. Next up, dear Commissioner Chong, pursuant to Article 3, Section 1B of the bylaws of the New York City Community Action Board, I hereby designate Ms. Michelle Peregrine as my representative on CAB's Board of Directors for an undefined term. Ms. Peregrine will replace Ms. Jessica Ackerman. Ms. Peregrine is an employee of the New York City Council. She can be reached at 212-482-2914 or by email. Thank you for your time and interest regarding the matter. Sincerely, Corey Johnson, Speaker of New York City Council. Next up, from the Office of the Mayor, dear Mr. Hambrick, pursuant to the bylaws of the New York City Community Action Board, I am pleased to designate Ms. Wanufi Tishon to serve as a second alternate to Howard Miller as first alternate on the Community Action Board. Ms. Tishon and Mr. Miller serve as alternates when such designation shall be required to Marco Carrion, who represents me in my capacity as an elected official on the Community Action Board. I send my thanks to you for reviewing this Community Action Board designation. Sincerely, Bill de Blasio, Mayor. Okay, guys, we're getting close. We're getting close. Office of the Public Advocate for the City of New York, Jamani Williams. Dear New York City Department of Youth and Community Development, Veronica Avius. I hope Avis?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Michael Toomey will act as representatives of the Public Advocate's Office at the Community Advisory Board meeting scheduled for April 4th, 2019. Sincerely, Jamani Williams, Public Advocate for the City of New York. Office of the Brooklyn Borough President. Dear Commissioner Chong, I am writing to you today to advise you that, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce this name. Last name is Blackshear. Nanero.
Yes.
Got it, thank you. Will be Candace Julian's alternate at the April 4th, 2019 New York City Department of Youth and Community Development Advisory Board meeting. Should you have any questions, please contact my senior advisor, Ingrid Lewis Martin. Her email and phone number is listed. Sincerely, Eric Adams, Brooklyn Borough President. Last and not least, dear Ms. Antonetti, this is coming from United Neighborhood Houses. I'm the designated representative of United Neighborhood Houses on the New York City Department of Youth and Community Development Community Advisory Board. Kevin Douglas is the designated, but he has left his position at United Neighborhood Houses to take a new position in California. Tara Klein, policy analyst at United Neighborhood Houses, will take my place today and vote on behalf of United Neighborhood Houses. We will appoint a permanent alternate soon. Thank you for welcoming Tara to the CAB tonight and all that you're doing for New York City communities. Sincerely, Gregory Brenda, Director of Children and Youth Services, United Neighborhood Houses. Whew. Okay, so I need, if there aren't any questions, I'm sure I won't get any objections, I hope not. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept all of these wonderful new members and recognize them to the CAB. It's been properly motioned by Linda Walters. Second by Tamika Robinson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstaining? There being none, let's have a round of applause for all of our new members. And these are a combination of public and private sector members. I know a couple of them, and I don't remember who were here last meeting, and I did give you the opportunity to speak, but those that are new to the meeting, would you like to say a few words to address the board? And if so, you can do now. Anyone? Okay. That's okay. We got enough work for you to do behind the scenes. All right. Where? Oh, got it. Okay. So in terms of NAB, okay, so we have new NAB chairs. This is great. So a recognition of the election of NAB chairperson representative for Manhattan and Staten Island, Ms. Claudia Perez, NAB Manhattan 11. Claudia's here? Okay. Well, we can recognize her nonetheless. And then the recognition of the regional reps, Ms. Cynthia Cox, Region 2, NDA, Bronx 3 and 4, Ms. Rhonda Joseph, Region 15, NDA Brooklyn 14 and 7, and Ms. Herminia Malone, Region 8, NDA Manhattan 3. Let's recognize, well, first, entertain a motion to recognize our new NAB reps and regional reps. I'll entertain a motion. Okay, been properly motion. Second, just say your name. Helen Foreman Hines. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstaining, there being none, so moved. So let's congratulate all our new NAB chair reps, regional reps. And this is the perfect segue for me to thank, again, DYCD, Anita and James. Where's James? He's somewhere in the wings there. They've been working very hard behind the scenes. There you go. James, come on in and just say hello to everyone. James Douglas. They've been working very hard behind the scene to make sure that these seats are filled. When James came aboard, that was kind of his thing. Like, that's all he talked about for his first few weeks, and he stood true to his word. So it's great to see that these positions are being filled, and we're really having a robust board. And not only that, there's obviously a camaraderie and a partnership between the CAB, the NAB reps, and this is really going to strengthen the community partnerships. So thank you for that. Am I done with this part?
You're done with this part. You should have done the NAB members who are here.
Okay, so the NAB chairs and members that are here, can you just please stand so at least we can see who you are? Okay, great. Give them a hand. You're all over the place, so we appreciate it. Thank you. All right, so now we're done with that part of the administrative business. Next up, we're going to ask artists to come up to give us our financial report. And I want to thank you, and we're going to move because I think we're kind of in the middle of this. I want to thank you. Last time, when artists left, there were quite a few questions you had regarding quarterly report. I just want to make sure everyone got the email that was here at the last meeting regarding the answers to the questions, but artists is very astute in this. So if there are any questions or concerns that you have regarding the quarterly report, now would be the time to do so.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Dalsie Andrade, and I work in the finance shop at DYCD, and I'm going to present My name is Dalsie Andrade. I work in the finance shop at DYCD, and I'm going to present a brief financial report on CSBG. So the total funds available in city fiscal year 19 is $35.4 million. And of that, 28.4 is allocated to program contracts. I'm just going to move this down, bear with me please. 2.3 million to audit contractual services, which support program contracts, and 4.7 million to DYCD PS. Of the funds allocated to the program contracts, 14.8 million is set aside for the MDA group, and that covers programs in about 7 areas, and that represents 52% of the overall award. The next highest award is SYEP, and in FY19 we had a budget of $6.8 million, and that represents 24%. Fatherhood initiative at 2.8 million is at 10%, and then we have some smaller categories: immigration refugee assistance at 2%, HRA legal services at 7%, the NICALI adult literacy at 2%, and adolescent literacy at 3%. The total program contracts overall represents 80% of the entire award of $35.4 million. The next bucket of funds, the audit contractual services, these are areas that support the program contracts. We have $1.6 million allocated to technical assistance, and that's 70% of that budget. fiscal field reviews where we engage an auditor to do on-site visits to our providers. That's $289,000. We have fiscal agent services where a few of our providers buy into this group so that they don't have to hire their own fiscal staff at $11,300. And then we have spending on marketing, public awareness, publication, printing and subscription, employee development, recruitment, travel, board development, stipend, and family development credentialing. And together that represents 6% of the award. $4.7 million is spent on DYCD PS costs, and that represents 13%. So overall, more than 86% of the budget of the CSBG award is spent on direct services. Our spending to date, and this is for data through February 2019, that's 7 months of the year. Our spending should be at the 67% rate, but as you can see here, program contracts are spending at $15.5 million, and that represents 55%. As I've explained a few times, our providers are really slow early in the year on submitting their PERS, but as the year comes to a close, they start ramping up. And you'll see that when I look at comparing the expenses from the last report. Other contractual services is spending at a 26% rate, and the PS is spending at 58%. The last time we met, I also talked about the fact that our payments is usually higher early in the year compared to our expenditures. And that's because we award our providers in advance so that they can start up. From this meeting and forward, you'll notice that the numbers are getting closer to each other. So payments is at 57%, and that's because starting in January, we start to recoup those advances. Payments on on other contractual services and personal services are the same. I want to now compare the numbers of today compared to the last meeting. We met on January 21st, and at that time, program contracts spent $10.3 million, and that represented 36% of the budget. And you can see it's increased by nearly 50%. We're now at $15.5 million. Other contractual services also increased. That increased by 80%. We were spending at $331,000. We're now at nearly $600,000. Personal services is the same because DYCD calculates our PS on a quarterly basis. So we don't have the numbers as yet for the quarter of January through March. By the next meeting, we'll have that. That concludes my presentation, and I would welcome any questions. And thanks again for the questions you sent.
Gideon Duncan. In the board development, can you tell me what's included in that? You're drill down on that one.
Yes, and I would like to actually call on Mike Bobbitt to help me with that. Mike and I get together every year. I'm sorry, the question is the category of board development at $39,122. What's that spent on? So I was saying Mike and I get together at the start of every year, and we apportion a pot of CSBG money to spend on these other other contractual areas. And it varies year to year depending on what's going on in the portfolio. So Mike, can you help me with that question?
Just very quickly, board development mostly consists of stipends, so in addition to the CAB, we are covering the expense of NAB volunteers out in the community, and so that expense may vary somewhat from year to year depending on if there's a community needs assessment. Obviously of late, the NABs have been very busy, so that's board development. And things like the bus to go to the Albany Symposium, that's also board development, because we're investing time, the volunteers, we're investing their time in the program.
Thanks for that question.
Hello. Can I ask about the fatherhood initiative?
Just state your name, please.
Yeah, Adam Bermudez from Councilman King's office. Yeah, it's about 2.8. Yeah, just sort of wondered what it went to.
Again, I'm going to call on my program colleague to speak to that in detail. I can talk about the numbers. He'll talk about the program.
Just repeat the question for them, Artie.
Yes. Your question was to elaborate on the fatherhood program. tell us what it is.
Very briefly, the Fatherhood Initiative, funded to receive, nearly $2.8 million. There's currently 8 contracts around the city. Each recruits non-custodial fathers who have 1 or more dependent age children that don't live with them, and they're all, at the CSBG eligibility criteria at the time of enrollment, so they are at or below 125% of federal poverty. We can, send a 1-pager to the board, which summarizes how the program works, but that's what that is, 8 contracts targeting non-custodial dads.
And the contracts would largely just go to the cost of facilitators, the cost of programmatic space, or like?
Sorry, thank you.
Okay.
The bulk of the contract is spent on the staffing plans for those contracts. So each contract anticipates a number of case managers. There are also outreach and retention specialists. So it's expected that clients who may initially not be that excited about being in the program, but because of their real life circumstances and their kids' circumstances, they quickly find out the program is there for them to help them chart a path forward in terms of increased material and financial support of their children and spending more time, talent children, with their children. That's the short version of the program design. So the bulk of the funds go to the CBO staff to run the programs. And then separately, oh no, okay, never mind. Sorry.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I would like to know what includes in technical assistant contract, and the number of award 11, is that the total number of award which has already been given to the agencies, or is it something, you have more which you are intending to give to cover this program?
Just state your name again, please.
Lily.
That's a good question. These 11 contracts have already been awarded. Actually, they were first awarded, we had a technical assistance RFP that started in city fiscal year 16.
Okay.
We're in the 3rd year of that contract, and we have just renewed these contracts for an additional 2 years. So these were first awarded in city fiscal year 16, and they cover a variety of services. And Mike, I'm gonna ask you to help me with this one again.
That actually, I just would like to focus, what kind of RFPs you do release which comes under technical assistant contract? Because I had an idea of, how we can extend program for the youth. Okay, as, our commissioner just mentioned, youth who goes to school, they have opportunity to enroll themselves. That's great. But I see, coming from Brooklyn neighborhood, District 14, I see a lot of dropout students, getting themselves addicted to drugs. They don't even have idea, how education can changes their lifestyle.
Sure.
So when I was surveying house to house, I came across, these challenges was very common, but parents don't want to discuss, kids were rude, they didn't want to talk about. So I thought, since I come from the technical background, and I thought, I just should do something which will involve these young kids, because the whole concept, the whole world, I think, is running on the technology. We can't deny with that. Even, you are talking, everything is connected with laptop and technology. So I was thinking how we can expand the program which can grab the attention for these youth who is drop out from the student, enroll them and teach them, train them, so they can be employed in any company, any big company. I was looking into those brochure, and I was looking, the youth program include training on some stores and learning about this and getting those summer job, but technology can play definitely big role.
Thank you.
I know more than.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, my question is too big, but
Okay,
yeah.
no, so technical assistance is a big part of all our programs. So not just community development, but our youth services program, our workforce programs. So the money here is just one big, small part of the larger investment we're making. So what we can send you is a list of all the current technical assistance providers. So for example, Jobs First, it gets funding from our federal Workforce Innovative Opportunity Act money. So wherever we get funding, we try to set aside a portion of that money for technical assistance. So we have some providers that, technical assistance programs that help nonprofits develop their boards, raise fundraising. So rather than take the time of the board, we can send you the list,
Great.
and then you can take it from there. But workforce is a big part of that. In fact, we're just launching right now, as we launch the new summer youth employment program model, the program that serves younger youth, 14 and 15-year-olds, is a different way of working with young people. So we have a technical assistance effort to help the nonprofits figure out how to implement this new program. So it's a big part. My first job at DYCD in 2003 was the assistant commissioner for capacity building. So it's something that I'm very focused on, and as the agency has grown, we've set aside more and more money to build strong nonprofits.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Good evening. Susan Campbell, President Linda Katz's office. A quick question. Immigration and refugee assistance, can you tell us what that consists of? And also, given all the anti-immigrant rhetoric coming from the White House, is there any consideration? I notice it's just 2% of the budget. Is there any consideration of increasing that a little bit?
I'm really gonna ask Mike to come up here with me.
Mike, you should just stay up there, Mike.
The program design starts with our program folks. They have an idea, they design it, and then they come to us and say, how can we fund that? And that's where I come in. So I'm gonna have Mike speak to that.
The question again is whether we're anticipating increasing funding to immigrant services, or what did you want
In
to
light of all the anti-immigrant
I think
rhetoric?
this is a narrow, because we have separate,
Yes, we have CTL funded.
This fund,
590,000.
it's just part of, what's part of, neighborhood development area. We have a separate portion of community development block grant, community service block grant money set aside for immigrant programs that's not reflected in this, right?
We've got,
We have about $2.1 million that's spent through the HRA. And then we also have CTL funded programs. We have a lot of immigration programs that are funded with city tax levy.
So the 14 million is not the total amount of anti-poverty money. There's another, how much?
the 2 million.
Yeah. So we can, again, in the interest of time, send you a list of all the programs that DYCD funds with federal and city tax levy that serves immigrants.
Yes, we'll get that.
Commissioner Rodriguez, I am observing over there in marketing, public awareness and outreach. It is a budget of over $46,000 and it's only, where am I? Yes, thank you. It's only 2% being spent on that. My question is why? Is it because you are doing your outreach through internet or through technology, or because you already have enough people enrolled? Why is it that it's not being the people, more informed about this? And why is that you're not spending more money?
Sure, great question. So each year we make a projection, and so we try to think about how best to cover and promote. There may be particular special events which we help co-host, co-facilitate with programs under a given portfolio. A couple of illustrations of this coming up. In May, we're going to do the second DYCD Community Moms Breakfast. And this is a campaign, good announcement for this campaign. This month through next month, we'll be taking solicitations and promoting, first through the intranet, hardworking mothers and mother figures throughout the city who are served under the CDFG portfolio, and then some of the CBOs that we contract with have nominated these women who come forward. We'll have a breakfast, we get to meet the commissioner and a few other folks. So there are modest expenditures that we sometimes occur when we do those programs. That's a piece of it. Sometimes there are, correct me if you're wrong, what they call participant beneficiary costs. So when you do a program, if you have an enhancement to the program, everybody needs a pair of work boots to do a work program. Everybody needs a pen and paper to take notes while they're hearing from the speaker. There's some costs associated with that. But the other story is we're very judicious. We're grateful that we have the money. We're very judicious, and we try to find other ways. We try to find donations and other supports when we can. So that's why we're very modest in the spending under that line, even though we have the projections. And also, as I mentioned, so the Mother's Day is one, the Father's Day is a second one. So a couple of our events, special events, will come up later in the year. They haven't happened yet.
And this is just again, the CSBG funded portion of that. As the Commissioner said, in other program areas, they may be spending in that as well.
Well, my question is because this is something that is needed. It is needed. There's a lot of people that they haven't heard of this, and we need to promote it more. It's not everybody that has access to technology and internet. So people need to hear, people need to see it on the streets, on the TVs. I don't know. Probably you need to increase a little bit more money, and spend a little more money in that sense.
On a related note, you'll see the item beneath the publications, printing, and subscriptions. A big piece of that, we projected, anticipating we'd have to reprint for NDA brochures as well as NAB brochures. Thankfully, economies of scale, we were able to print a lot of those last year, and so we'll probably be able to reallocate a little of that money this year, but we still want to have the projection for next year because when we run out, we do want to make those materials available to the community.
Good evening, Vashti Valerius. I just wanted to find out, along with her question, because that was really, really good about publications and letting our communities know, right, to make sure that we're supported so that we can let the communities know what we're doing, right? So what is the reality to, besides the marketing, got that, so what are we doing besides the brochures and so on and so forth to continue to let communities know about it? So what digital or things are we doing that we're informing the community so that it's helping our task and it's helping our board members to pass on the word about what we're doing and that they have access? Because a lot of members, and I'm in Far Rockaway, a lot of members have a bit difficulty really understanding like what our purpose is and how we can assist them.
Sure, thank you for your question. So we reference print, and it's very helpful you point out digital, so I'll just reference the Commissioner's earlier remarks when he was talking about DYCD Connect, the portal and the app. And there's a lot of different vehicles we use on social media. We're very active, Facebook, Twitter, etc., where we're trying to promote, and not just to youth, but also to adults, whoever's using social media. And once you build these engines, it's de minimis cost to maintain them, so it is important to have the print publication, that sort of thing. We are trying to tap into those other media. And I've shared this in other forums or other meetings too. We have periodic provider meetings as well. So when we're sharing with our direct service providers about upcoming events or strategies, we often do a lot of peer sharing among them. So the ones that have struggled with retention or recruitment go to the head of the room to explain some of the things that they've done. And those are other topics, actually, when the Commissioner is talking about the technical assistance that we support centrally, that includes things like retention and marketing, that sort of thing as well. So we can help train and strengthen our providers to do that as well.
Sorry.
I just want to add something. I think what she's trying to get at is how do you get down to community level to let people know what's going on. So one of the ways that I think of would be to do bus ads, subway ads, our community center ads, and I think this is what you're trying to get at. How do you get down, drill down to the
They
community
all are
level?
great ideas, but unfortunately we can't afford it. I mean, I'll be very honest with you. The federal funding for this program has stayed the same for 20 years. I mean, President Obama tried to cut the program in half. Trump has tried to eliminate the program. When Obama was president, it was the Republicans in Congress that fought to save the program. So I don't think there's any disagreement that we should spend more on marketing, but we have to make hard choices about do we invest in services or do we invest in marketing? And so we try to invest in services with a shrinking pot because the average size of these contracts is about $75,000. I've worked in nonprofits. $75,000 is a really thin budget, okay? So I don't want to take any more from the community groups to fund marketing. So we So we welcome ideas of free advertising, because free is free, and that's why we try to do more social media. So if you have ideas of how to get free marketing, we're all ears. But we have to make hard choices about bus. And the reality is, I'm not sure how many times people read bus ads. People I'm on the bus, I'm on the train. People kind of close their eyes if they zone out and stuff. So we welcome your ideas to do marketing. Once we have this new universal application up and running, it's gonna make it easier. So we want to encourage people to figure out how to apply for all services. We're starting with city agencies because they're the ones who meet people day to day, whether it's an HRA benefit office, whether it's at a family homeless shelter, whether it's a young person in a foster care program. So we want to make sure that we make the best use of that money, because it went from 400 million to 906 million. So we want to make sure that when you have situations where 3 programs in one campus building, that we're making the most use of it. And parents were part of the survey group that we reached out to, all the principals and young people. So we did a major change in how we did the needs assessment. It used to be just the groups that were funded under Mike Bobbin, but last year under Deputy Commissioner Denise Williams, we broadened it because we thought that the information that we would learn about, and I think we have copies of the 2016 needs assessments.
Yes.
You do,
So
and it's also on the
anyone
web.
who's interested, we can get a copy. It was informative to us. One of the top 3 things that came out of the needs assessment survey was food insecurity. People had challenges accessing food. So we try to use it, and so at the same time, we're now more mindful. The council funds a food pantry initiative, which we administer. We want to make sure we connect the food pantries with the neighborhoods that have raised this issue. So I think we're trying to be more comprehensive in how we engage our programs, because in the past we operated community development was here, employment was here, after school was here. So we're trying to be much more comprehensive and thoughtful about how we invest our resources.
The board members who were with us in 2017 were sent the web link and a hard copy, I believe, of the Green Needs Assessment Report. But we can certainly circulate those links. And if you go to the website, we actually have a neighborhood profile page in the NAD, so we have findings for that as well.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And we appreciate those questions. Just a couple of things real quick. Number one, if there are additional questions that you didn't get to ask, please see myself or a member of DYCD so we can do that again to get those questions answered. In the spirit of trying to move the meeting, we still want to get those questions answered. And also the format of the financial report you saw, that's a slightly condensed version from a few years ago. Artis was very receptive. They're financial people. They can give you a very robust financial report, but it was hard to really read it for those of us that are not financial people to follow through. What you see here is a simplified version. If we needed to drill down more, we certainly can get you that information, but I certainly would recommend sticking to this format. I will say we get more questions from this format than we did years ago, which means it's easier to see and you're able to really understand and ask the questions that you're asking that's relevant. So that's a good thing. Based on what the commissioner said in terms of there are other columns and other figures we can look at, if that's relevant to you, we can get you that information, but this is a format that I think everyone can look at that's not overwhelming, that can really paint the financial picture. So Artis, thank you for that, and thank you everyone who asked their questions. So I entertain a motion now to accept the financial quarterly report.
Move that motion.
Yes, it's been properly moved. Just state your name again, please. Joseph Pierre. And it's been seconded by Linda Walters. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposing, abstaining, there being none, so moved. Okay, thank you. So Deputy Commissioner Sandra Gutierrez, has suggested that she's not gonna do her presentation, as much as I miss seeing her.
Why? Because the commissioner covered a lot of
Okay.
Still her thunder.
Okay. And you know Sandra, she comes up and lights up the room, so we don't get the benefit of that.
I want to say that we're going to launch the next assessment in July, and we are very, very, very excited. So whatever I was going to say, I'll leave it to
Okay, great. So you can see her report in the packet, and Anita forwarded those other informations as needed. Thank you, Sandra, for that. All right, so we're just gonna really go through our committee reports rather quickly. We just have our committee reports, and then we have a presentation on SYEP that I'm looking forward to. You heard a lot about that. So I'm gonna pass it over to Linda Walters. There is some governance business we do need to do in terms of filling a couple of executive seats. So I'm gonna start with Linda Walters. She's gonna quickly go through her governance committee report.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. The committee meeting minutes can be found on page 10 of the board packet. The meeting date should be corrected to read Tuesday, March 19, 2019. As you heard previously, we have 2 new representatives. Region 2, Bronx NDA 3 and 4, and Region 7, Manhattan NDA 3. Elections will soon be completed for Region 8, Manhattan NDA 9 and 12, and Region 17, Queens NDA 3, 4, and 7. There are 2 vacancies for MAB chairperson representatives for Brooklyn and Bronx/Queens. These elections will be completed by June CAB meeting. A workshop in parliamentary procedures was held, and Ms. Rhonda Joseph has submitted her name as a candidate for the position of CAB parliamentarian. Voting for that position and the position of CAB secretary will happen after this report. Reminder, according to the bylaws, members are allowed 1 excused absence per program year, September to June. After that, members with 2 absences will receive a warning letter, and after the 3rd absence, the member will be removed from their seat on the CAB. The Department of State now requires that the conflict of interest, COI, forms must be completed every year. In order to stay in compliance with the national standards, every CAB member must complete a new COI, which is conflict of interest form, for 2019. If you have not done so already, please see Jeff, who has the forms. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that report. So there are 2 seats up on the executive committee up for vote. So the parliamentarian role, and I want to thank again DYCD and specifically Anita did the presentation on parliamentarian rules and Robert Rules of Order. And as a result of that training, Rhonda Joseph has submitted her name for consideration for the parliamentarian role. We are able to accept names on the floor today if anyone else wants to be considered for that role. So would anyone else want to be considered for the parliamentarian role? Okay, so for that, Rhonda Joseph, where's Rhonda? Rhonda, how you doing? Stand up, Rhonda. First off, do you want to address the board in terms of your interest in the role? So this is right up your alley. You're going to be a pro at this. I love it. Well, thank you for submitting your candidacy for the position. So let's do this. We have to go back, obviously, to accept the governance report. But while we're talking about this role, I'll entertain a motion now to accept Rhonda Joseph as the parliamentarian. It's been so moved. Properly second by Ms. Patel. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstaining, there being none, so moved. Congratulations, Ms. Joseph. Look forward to you filling that role. And the next up is the secretary role, not a heavy role. For some reason, we don't get a lot of people wanting to be considered, but you're basically gonna take some pressure off of Anita, because you're gonna do the roll call and just some minor administrative stuff. That is really the secretary role. It has been vacated by Rita Jones, and for those who don't know, Rita Jones has been very ill, and I believe now she's on disability, so she had to resign from the board and subsequently that role, which is why it's vacated. So that is really the secretary role. I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about it while we go through this, but is anyone interested at all in the secretary role? Just think you're gonna be helping Anita, if that's gonna help your nomination. Just don't let Anita down. All right?
She looks suitable. I know.
All right, we're gonna circle back to this, and we may have to vote on it next meeting.
I work full-time software development company, but when I'm traveling, I can't make it.
It is an easy role. We're gonna talk in there. We're gonna talk in there. It's an easy role. You shouldn't even express a minuscule of interest. I'm gonna roll you into this. What's your name?
She's an admin.
Oh.
It has to be a cat.
It has to be a CAD member. That's right. Oh wow, you got one out for nothing. Yes. My apologies. Thank you, Anita. It has to be a CAB member. Sorry. All right, you're off the hook. All right, so we'll circle back to that, and if anyone is interested in that role. Other than that, any questions on the governance committee report at all? Okay, I'll entertain a motion now to accept the governance committee report. It's been properly moved. Who said that? Gideon Dunkley? Second, say your name. Cynthia Cox, okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Abstaining, there being none, so moved. Next up was Ariel with her committee report.
So we met on Thursday, March 14th. The minutes are on page 24 of the board meeting packet. I'm just going to summarize really quickly because we actually touched a lot on some of the things that we talked about on the 14th. So with NAB recruitment, as you saw, we have a lot of new recruits. DYCD, Anita, James, and Primavera have been doing a lot of really great work trying to plan events to get people to sign up for NABs. There was an event in January with the Office of the Brooklyn Borough President, and he managed to fill 11 out of his 13 vacant seats, so that's really great. So thank you for all the work that you've done on that. We talked a little bit about the NAB youth contingent. DYCD has been planning a number of events with the youth. There was one on April 5th where hosted by the Bronx, NAB2, talking about community needs and resources. That was hosted by the youth residents. There's also going to be a youth summit on May 11th, and the NAB unit will be talking to those participants as well, so hopefully we'll get some more interest on the part of the youth. Additionally, we're thinking about ways to get involved with the summer youth employment program, both through census work opportunities and then also to recruit for the NABs. We talked about the NAB Ambassador Project and saw some of the work that DYCD has been doing to compile some of the highest needs that came out of the Ambassador Project last year. We have a pretty ambitious goal this year. I believe it's to get 500 surveys for each NDA. So we're going to need all your help on that. There's going to be some trainings coming up. I'll share information about that. You should have your report for your specific area in your folder today. And then we also talked about the SYP worksite recruitment. I'm not going to go into detail about that because we're going to have a presentation in a few minutes. But if you do have any ideas of worksites that you think would be a good fit for the SYP program, definitely come and talk to one of us up here. And that's it.
Thank you, Ariel. So any questions on the Strategic Partnerships Committee report? Okay, now I entertain a motion to accept the Strategic Partnerships Committee report. It's been probably motion by Isaac Heschel. Seconded by Tamika Robinson. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposing? Abstaining? There being none, so moved. And last but not least, Tamika will give her program committee report.
Thank you.
We met on March 13th, and if you refer to page 11 of your board meeting packet, you'll be able to find the minutes. We had a presentation, as we always do, so we welcome everyone, NAD or CAB, to join us for the program committee meetings, because we usually have a presenter come in and they explain the details of the program. So this time we had Family Development Credential, which is the FDC program led by Rhodesia Humphrey, and she's the Deputy Director of DYCD Capacity Building Unit. Assistant Commissioner Mike Bobbitt, he also reported on the program's participation rate and outcomes. And just to give you a little background information about FDC, it's a New York State Professional Development Training Program that provides frontline staff with the skills and competencies they need to empower families. So it's a very important program that helps provide services for families to utilize the services to the maximum. FDC trained staff help families capitalize on their strengths and attainable goals. The FDC curriculum developed by the National FDC program at the University of Connecticut consists of approximately 90 hours of intensive interactive classroom study. The FDC for Leaders is another professional development training specifically for supervisors, managers, and directors. Also presenting were Carrie Shockley from CUNY, Marjorie Witherspoon, the instructor of City College, City Tech rather, and Sonia Mercado from CUNY. And they all gave background information or more detailed information about the instruction and shared a lot of the student experiences. So the program is based on family development principles, and it gives a strong emphasis on the empowerment-based leadership skills. So, I mean, like I said, the program committee is an excellent committee for you to find out more about programs in your community. We always have a presenter. There's a lot of questions always being asked. You can offer up solutions if you want. So we welcome everybody to come out and join us when we have our meetings. Everyone's welcome, and it's a great place for you to find, get all background information about the community services that's provided in your area. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamika. So any questions on the program committee report? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the program committee report. So moved by Gideon Dunkley, seconded by Linda Walters. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposing? Abstaining? There being none, so moved. Thank you for those committee reports. Again, a CAB member can sit on any of the committees. I like the fact that the committees are growing, and you can call into the committee meeting if you're challenged travel-wise in terms of work and so forth. So that's the one committee, the one meeting where you can be a part of it and don't have to physically be present. It's best to be present, especially for the dialogue that takes place. But if you want to know a lot that's going on in the committees, you can call into the meeting. So if you're interested in any of the committees, please see myself, Anita, or James, and we'll be happy to give you information on that. Before we get into our presentation, Secretary, going once. I told you I was coming back to it. Right. CAB member, Isaac Heschel. Thank you, Isaac. Good man. Anything you want to say?
Anything to help Anita.
I love it. All right. Isaac represents Brooklyn, so I appreciate that. So with that said, I entertain a motion to accept Isaac Heschel as the secretary as part of the executive committee. It's been properly moved. Cynthia Cox. Second by
Nan Blackshear.
Okay, all in favor? Those opposed? Abstaining? There being none, so moved. Thank you. We got a lot of business done. A lot of business done today. Alright, so next up is my good friend Dalsie, who is going to come up and talk about SYEP. Okay, thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate you coming by. Another round for the Commissioner for... So we heard a lot about SYEP and Ladders for Leaders, and we know that season is coming up. Dalsie, last year around this same time. He was nice enough to come up and do a presentation and talk a lot about the programs. She's extremely knowledgeable, so anything you need to know about the program, she's the person to speak to. So she's going to talk a little bit about both programs, and certainly if you have any questions, she'll be here to answer them. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Can everyone hear me? Yes. And in the interest of time, I will be short. I know we've mentioned the word presentation a lot, but I actually just have some remarks for you guys. Typically, I have the detailed presentation, but we'll go ahead and just dive in. For those who do not know me, my name is Dalsie Andrade, and I'm the Director of Employer Engagement and Partnerships for the DYCD Youth Workforce Portfolio. And I'm actually here today to put out a call to action to all the CAB members to help us in referring different business and organizations for the SYP and Ladders for Leaders program. Just on a very high level, because I'm sure everyone's familiar with both programs, but obviously SYP, the nation's largest youth employment program, connecting New York City youth ages 14 to 24 with career exploration and work opportunities, paid work opportunities. And Ladders for Leaders actually falls under the SYEP umbrella, and it serves students ages 16 to 22 with employer-paid professional work opportunities. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, where can I start? What can I do? So I have 3 options for you guys to consider. So the first one, really think about your workplace. So really speak to your colleagues, your departments, and you all, just in your workplaces in general. Just asking yourself, do you have any projects or any work that you think a young person can opt into and potentially lead as well? Also, just thinking about your local neighborhood businesses. So after work, over the weekend, is there a business that you frequent that you think would definitely use some help from a young person in the summer? And then lastly, just thinking about your own networks. I know everyone here is part of CAB, part of an association, another board. There's some representatives from our elected officials' offices, so definitely just putting the word out to your networks in case any businesses or organizations are interested. And I remember from the last CAB meeting, someone asked, well, who can opt in? What if it's a small business and they only have like 1 or 2 employees? That's totally fine. We are open to all businesses, small, medium, large. We're also open to nonprofit organizations, obviously our private businesses as well, and even your cultural institutions, whether that's museums, the parks, etc. We are open. Every single year we have thousands upon thousands of young people applying to both of our programs, and we want to be able to place as many young people as we can into different work opportunities for the summer. So, just talking a little bit more about the young people through our programs. Obviously, you know, young people are tech savvy, they know the social media, they know the Excel, they know the PowerPoints, and they're able to bring new and fresh ideas to the different opportunities that they have. Also, in thinking about your workplaces or the workplaces in your networks, it's also a good opportunity for a staff person to kind of mentor and also supervise a young person, something that they can add onto their resume, especially if they're thinking about advancement opportunities on the job. And also, I just want to mention this, we're really focused on cultivating and growing New York City talent. That's the point of our programs. It's about exposure to different career options and opportunities, and really making sure that a young person can actually contribute substantially to different workplaces or organizations that they're part of. So we really want you all to be part of that experience. I know for myself, starting off in my first internship, I'm kind of still in that same space of government and nonprofit. So any help you guys can bring to the table would be great. Just jumping right ahead, as the commissioner shared, we are in a new phase of the SYP program, SYP 3.0 as he calls it, and we're really targeting new and more communities of young people. That's including night shift, also our homeless foster care youth, students through our DOE schools, and many, many more. So it's definitely a great time right now to opt into the new SYEP and help a lot of different groups of young people working for our programs. Also, like the Ladders for Leaders program, we do focus on those professional work opportunities. And we do have a critical eye to opening the doors to some of our corporate and advanced internship opportunities. So if you do have any connections there, that would be great. And I just wanted to jump ahead and say we just need your help. In regards to process, it's pretty streamlined for both programs. For SYEP, the application did launch on April 2nd, so it is online. I just want to mention in the back, I do have some updated SYEP employer one-pagers. If anyone wants to see me back there and they have any questions, I'm happy to hand that out. I also have my contact information as well back there, and I'll just stop there. I just want to put that call to action out there. Again, we want to place as many young people as possible. We can't serve everyone, but with your help, I know we can serve more. So, thank you. Yes,
What is the deadline for employers to sign up?
Just say your name, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Harold Miller.
Yeah, so for the employers, the deadline right now is looking like the end of May. So there still is time. Now, I wanted to just say looking like because sometimes that does change, but for right now, it's looking like end of May.
Okay.
And candidates can begin working July 8th. Just to give you a heads up. And it's 6 weeks, 25 hours a week. Any other questions? Anything I can help with? If not right now, I'm going to be in the back for a bit, so feel free to come back.
Thank you. Thank you, Dalsie. So for those of you who are going to do outreach to new employers that may be interested, I offered this last year and I'm going to offer it again. It's always good to get reference points from employers, whether public or private, that have been a part of this program. So if you have someone on the fence, you know, employers sometimes, less stated when it comes to young people, they're a little, you know, put the blinders up. They don't want to deal with, you know, a 16-year-old worker. Reach out to me. Use me, use any other employer. I'll be happy to speak to anyone that really wants to know specifics and benefits of the program. Like I stated, we're going to be employing young people in all of our locations. And it's really been a part of our strategic recruitment plan, and we'll continue to expound on that partnership. But we're looking, you know, as Dalsie said, you never can employ all the kids that apply. I mean, it's the application rate is 6 figures, right? It's 100-some thousand. I don't know the exact number, but we never employ all, but they've been successful in making sure more and more youth and young adults are getting employed. So now's the time where we can do the outreach, and if there's anything we can do to help with that, let us know. Deputy Commissioner?
Yeah, so, one of the things I wanted to say was that we have, I introduced you to Primavera last time we were.
Yes.
Right? And we have 2 new staff that joined us, and that's Fetch. Is he hiding? Okay. So, these are 2 new staff, and what we were saying earlier was that, you know, it takes a lot to be out there in the community. We really didn't have enough people, but we have what I feel now is a dream team, right? Because those numbers went up because of not only the fact that these people as a whole, this group, staff as a whole has incredible commitment, but they also have the requisite skill set that it takes. Each one of them has a skill, but altogether they have this incredible skill set that really gets us what we need in terms of the NEB. The NEBs are interesting groups because each one of them is different needs, each one of them has different needs, and each one of them is vital to what we believe. We could never do priority setting without the NEB and without them. So we want to appreciate them. I wanted to shout out Mitch and Jeff for joining the team.
Congratulations, welcome. That's good. Thank you again, Dalsie, and she's here and in the back, so if you have any specific questions, you can reach out to her. We're in the home stretch, guys, just a few more minutes and we're done, and I thank you for all your feedback. Is there any old business we need to go over? Any old business? Any new business? that we need to go over. Yes, Susie Tannenbaum.
It's always terrible when you're the one thing between adjournment and, right? But I did want to mention, and good evening everyone again, Susan Tannenbaum, Borough President Melinda Katz's office. I am now also the Borough President's point person for the 2020 census for the outreach effort we're doing at the Borough President's office. We all know 2020 census relates to everything we do. It's going to determine how much federal funding we have for services and infrastructure. It's going to determine how many congressional members represent us in the House of Representatives for the next decade. So our office has formed, the Borough President has formed a complete count committee. At this point, we have like 80 people, trusted partners from around the borough participating. And I just want to tell everyone, Wednesday, May 1st, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., we're having a census job fair. And you're all welcome to come or to, send people our way. I don't have any material here tonight. I'm happy to email something if it's possible to forward.
Yes.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll be talking, I know we will be talking about 2020 census. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Susie. And we referenced that earlier in the meeting, and you're right. It's going to be, no, we can't speak of it enough. We're going to be talking quite a bit about that over the next year. So thank you for that. Yes, Rivera.
Hi everyone, just one more quick announcement. Bronx Neighborhood Advisory Board 2, NAB2, is having a free event tomorrow. There's going to be a DJ, live music, there's going to be a computer raffle, and it is all for the youth, led by the youth. It's going to be at 6:30 p.m. in the Bronx, West Borough, at 940 Garrison Avenue in Hunts Point. You can take major transportation there or the good old 6 train. Please come and support your local neighborhood advisory boards and share it amongst your network. And once again, it's free, it's for the youth, led by the youth, and it's also a part of a free series youth forum that they are hosting. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. That's great. You said Bronx, best borough. Monica Major is just like out of this here. And I usually, I know we've been here long, so I won't stretch it out. This is usually the point where I allow people within the community to talk about events that are coming up. Because even though we represent different boroughs, there's things happening in other boroughs where we can support and be a part of and share information about. So if you have anything that's upcoming in the boroughs, anything of significance, please let us know. Again, we have everyone's email. We'll be able to share that information. Okay.
In April, which is in May, I should say, we're in April now. DYCD is partnering with the health and the Department of Health, the H&H, Health and Hospitals, for the Spring into Health Fair. This is a week-long fair at different community centers will hold, giving health information to the boroughs. It's in your board packet. You're welcome to attend. You're welcome to table at any one of the sites, and it's coming up in May. So it's a great thing. It has grown. The first one was 2 years ago, and there were only 6 sites. Now, it's, how many sites? 54 sites across the city of New York. So it starts the second week of May, and through Saturday is when most of the sites are having their all over the city of New York. And as I said, the information's in your packet.
Thank you. That's great. And lastly, when me and my family attend church, we attend church in Harlem. I live in Jersey. That's the church my wife grew up in. When things happen to a member in the church, my pastor and other members say, when one hurts, everybody hurts, and everybody supports each other, and that's no different here. And I just want to let Tamika Robinson know it's no different. We're going to support her. You may have seen the email. So Tamika has been an active member of the CAB, sits on our executive board, experienced a loss, lost her husband in February suddenly. So we just want to show her that we love and care about her, and support her during this difficult time. She has a college-age daughter, and a younger daughter in middle school. So those things are tough, but she's here. You know, I've talked to Tamika. She's committed. She's here, and we just want to, as a board, let you know we're here to support you. So whatever you need in terms of support to get you through it, we are here. Yeah. So if there aren't anything else, again, thank you to our stenographer. I don't know your name. Christy? That's Christy, and it's my buddy Jermaine from DYCD, videographer here. And thanks to all the members of DYCD again, and thank you for your support during this meeting. I never get a quick enough motion to end the meeting, but I'll entertain a motion now to conclude the meeting. Ms. Patel has been properly motioned. Seconded by Linda Walters. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, okay. Enjoy your spring, everyone. See you at the next meeting. Thank you.